2:30. Go ahead and call the November 16th DOTComm Oversight Committee meeting to order. First thing is the adoption of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes, or is there a motion? Motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion in a second.
Butler.
Yes.
Danforth.
Yes.
Conley. Yes. Redmond.
Yes.
And Lorenz.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is departmental reports.
As you know, we showed it every time, some version of how the hours are still happening. Work that comes to do. What's on here today is just that's October. The chart on the left showing the type of work and the number of hours spread out so you can ticket work, incidents and service requests, and project work. And then the year-to-date, the pie chart there is just split between city and county, and often that is we use that to balance it back against the cost model, how costs are allocated. So you see, we're a little bit heavy year-to-date on the county side in terms of that split. It kind of has it, and that way, for most of the year, there were some big county projects in the beginning. This is just showing the scope of 2 year data tickets. You'll see the actual number of tickets. There's the blue is the county, the purple is city. Is fairly consistent, but we've come down a bit from 2021, but steady in there at about over 2,200 tickets. And then the cost model. So we are working on the 2024 cost model. We are right now in the period of working on finishing up the 2024 draft budget. We'll combine that with the inventory that we have for that snapshot we took in October or end of August. And then we'll be sending out department reports. And again, the department reports for this first pass just show the inventory levels by department. So I would encourage, if people are curious about the numbers, if you don't automatically send the details, we're hoping we'll get that at some point in self-service. People can go look at themselves, but happy to send out that. So if there was a big shift in, we'll do the year over year. So if there's a big shift in like number of PCs or anything like that, we can send those details. And then the final step on that cost model will be the actual numbers with it, so the budget for 2024 that'll be sent out in January.
And let's go on.
And
this is something that Julie and I worked on. Out on our website, we have what we consider the service catalog, right? You know, if you look at it, here's all the things DOTComm does. We re-looked at that and made sure we included all the latest and greatest. And this is what we came up with. So we've shopped this around with people, presented it to the county, and this eventually will end up on the front page of our website as well. So here are all the services and documents. You know, in one page, you should be able to say who we are, who we serve, what we do, and all the different things. So that's, if you have any notes on that, let us know. Otherwise, we'll and then the other thing that we're kicking off with is this departmental meeting. So myself, and either depending on the entity, Bobby or Diane, we're working right now on 2 things. A 2022 overview of your departmental data. So we're going to go meet with each department. While we share a lot of that with departments already, and Julie and her team do a great job of meeting with the clients and doing that. Myself and Diane and Bobby want to go out and meet with them and show them kind of a different view of the data. So we're going to prepare that as well as a questionnaire that we just kind of wrapped up. And we're going to share that with them in advance to get some written feedback. We can aggregate the numbers. That questionnaire is the point where we'll share with you Oversight Committee next. So we'll give it to you guys to look at if you want to make changes or add things, subtract things. We'll give you a quick presentation on that in the next few weeks. And then we will then schedule those meetings with the departments who can meet with them face to face to collect that data and obviously roll that all up and present it here. How we had all this.
All right, incidents in SLAs, we had one P2 for last month. It had to do with a certificate issuance. We are redoing our certificate authority internally. That's how the devices trust each other between all the other devices. And with that, there was a certificate that was issued that was not compliant with our firewalls. which impacted the ability for some people to do it. So we corrected that, reissued it. You got those. For SLAs across the month, everything met the or October, but year to date for our P2s, we missed on that last certificate piece. That one went a little bit over, so we were training up. That kept us back down. We have roughly 12 P2s, so we missed. It hurts those stats. And then this is the overall based on teams where they met with incidents and service requests P1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this is our technical support. What we refer to as our service desk. So this is the number of calls that we came in for October, and we do a rolling average, rolling track for the year, and you can see that that's there. The red line is our first call resolution. Our blue line there is our abandon rate. As I stated before in other times that we use an offsite, and I'll show that one. Offsite for after hours support Marion. And our system, the way that it transfers, it looks at, it counts that as an abandoned call on the transfer. So we're working with the system on getting that upgraded so that those two numbers are compared. And here is our Arion piece that we do for after hours and holidays. The top one is just our calls that go in, not including the password reset. So in May, we started a separate endeavor with them for password resets to get our client base served faster for client resets or password resets. And so that bottom one, we're tracking specifically the number of password resets for the month, and you can see that roughly is around 375, 400 password resets per month that they're specifically taking just for that. So those calls are actually doing really well. And then the top one are then all the other general calls that come in during after hours and holidays. Any questions on that? Right. And then the technical support, this is the customer survey responses, and everything still is tracking. One of the things that we've also adopted that we'll be reaching out to the individual departments is with monitoring. So within our monitoring platform, and if you go over to 408 after this for the tour, you'll see that in the service desk. So we do have live, what we call our network operations center, are not, so they're actively monitoring the applications that are out there in the system services. So we're trying to be as proactive as possible instead of waiting for our customer to call us and say, hey, this is down. The NOC is there to watch and then be able to open up tickets and engage those teams to repair or restore. Any questions?
Next up. So our web traffic of our 150 plus websites that we run across the entire traffic seems to be pretty stable except one day at the end of September we have one busy day. Usually we do see at the end of the month some high volume traffic coming through. Most of the time it's pretty stable. And then our APEX score continues to stay around number one, which is kind of supposed to be excellent. We monitor that pretty closely because that kind of gives us an indication how satisfied our users are with the response time of our website or application. So we can monitor that. And then this is a kind of a high level analytics on Douglas County sites or aggregation of all Douglas County sites here. You can see the corrections and purchasing. Some of those sites have been heavily utilized across Douglas County. And at the left bottom, you see now interesting indication is 50% of those users are coming through mobile applications. So that's another kind of data point that's something you should keep in mind. Whenever we put in new applications, we have to make sure they're mobile ready and responsive so that users can come and through devices and services. And then this is a kind of a drill down on the top side corrections. We do that for each and every site we monitor. And as you can see, if you look at the correction side, there's almost 60% utilization of people are coming in for the inmate lookup and different services across different services across Douglas County. So we have a detail level data available as well, and we do share that with departments of every site so they can make some intelligent decisions. So which case is being accessed more and what service are being utilized. And here on the same city side also, we look at the OPDs, the site that's been heavily hit. And again, metrics show that even 50% of the users are coming from rural devices to access the sites there. You know, again, if you have the detail level indication, those are which are looking up on waters and the accident reporting major services that we can present on those sites. Any questions?
I think from the economic standpoint, the overall hours are there for the month of October. I would have looked through where we stand with small companies that reported. So they make sure for everybody. This morning we weren't able to get those data numbers. We'll get those before the end of the year, so we can see where we're at. Trend analysis wise, we're right on track for what we are year over year at this time. If you look at kind of the high load throughout our hands, there's month of July has some mistakes in vacation time. Fourth quarter, we look to see a good push. We've been running 65 active projects and getting into some of that reasons why as we start to look at some of that program data. But then from the number of requests that are in queue is about 45, 46 as of today. Usually that number is flip-flopped, and we talked about that in this forum. The number of active projects at DOTComm is continually growing this year. It's a bit higher than but after taking away that message in September, really getting into the things that are happening, I've got a little bit of insight that I'll share. So again, from the plan starts, looking to get one started in November. The month of January looks to be poor, but I think some of those efforts are going to be pulled ahead into December. Again, I know that sounds like a contradictory message. We're going to start on projects and I just will do growth this year. But some of those have to do with some hard back-end deadlines and timing of annualized projects. The project that was closed last month was a Turnaback Act. So this was an online form that we're able to submit and file, and the approval process of the review process was then automated prior to when it was all handled. Okay, so here we are into the VoIP program. Again, we saw a big step function in the number of centers that are still remaining. So started a couple more projects there. The number of cutovers continue to be good, and that program just continues to perform. So to provide a little more detail, for the closed projects on the VoIP program, we've closed 4 this year. But as you can see from the active projects, we've got 9 active projects in that VoIP queue. So going back and looking at what's pushing us over where we normally want to be within our VoIP projects, the VoIP program has really done a good job keeping that number held high for us. And some of that had to do with those projects and the way that we bundle those different sites and broke them down. So we have larger projects that were in queue, but we decided because of the way that the funding was coming in to be able to segment that out. So that gives the departments an opportunity to then take a very targeted approach when they fund those sites. So again, that's why we saw more projects in the volume side. But from a VoIP team perspective, we've got a month or a weekly cadence when we meet, reviewing all with the same group of resources. So thinking about the number of projects that we have sometimes isn't the best indication of how we're doing from an overall portfolio. So I did want to share that with this group. Again, from the request queue sitting at 16. So library was a great example of where we had the library VoIP project, and then we broke it down with specific branches, and that gives us our staff and the opportunity to say, you know, we just want to fund this branch, or we only have to fund this one at this time. So we can hold that work forward and real targeted about that scope.
So I'll take it here. We've been talking about VoIP for years, right? And we've been showing a slide on that program, and we consider it a program because it's a bunch of projects rolled up into one, and we've made a bunch of progress. So we wanted to take that same approach. And as we promised 2 months ago, we're going to add three, really. One we've already been talking about, but 2 new additional programs to what we show you every month and then talk about at our meetings. First one is just the mainframe and what's happening there with our modernization efforts. And the second one is our business intelligence reporting or data visualization. So there won't be a month that goes by that we don't talk about what's active, what's in queue, and what we completed in those areas. And I'm going to go through these pretty quick because I've already given this to the audience that cares about it most, which is our county folks, and they were very receptive to it. So I will briefly go over these charts just to give everybody a feel for what's going on with the mainframe. But for those of you that don't know the mainframe, it's often misunderstood. It's viewed as this, steel box in a basement somewhere that people, use that tape and wire and keep running. The fact of the matter is it's not. It's a very modern, high-tech device used by all sorts of retailers and Fortune 500 businesses. Not because they want to, but because it's, because of the legacy and because of what it does, it's really hard to escape that legacy. We'll talk about that in a minute. When it comes to city and county, we've got 40 departments, so we'll break that down in a minute. We've got over 6 million lines of code that's been running, a lot of which was written a long time ago. With that. That being said, we have removed workload from the mainframe, and we're working with departments to continue to do so, as well as we've made sure that the mainframe itself, we work with Sirius on, they run that for us as a managed service, is as modern and technically capable as possible. So just to get a feel for who's using it, this is transaction codes. The lion's share is in 2 places, right? It's in the criminal justice space, which shouldn't surprise anybody, as well as the property space. And if you go to the chart about this, just shows you in those, here's everyone that's using it. So we're working with the feds, the state, city, and county. So anything we want to do to try to remove workload, as you can imagine, it's not just a technical problem, oftentimes it's a political problem, an administrative problem to solve. So why do we want to do this? Well, the first thing we want to do is understand how we modernize the mainframes and technology and doing that. Second of all, how do we work with departments? Why is this important? Well, first, mainframes used to be a rising cost. We want to make sure we contain those costs. Always want to consider disaster recovery, and if something were to happen to our sea level, it's very unlikely, but if it were to happen, we want to make sure we can get back up and running quickly. The biggest issue, and I think everyone understands this, is just the technical debt and the aging workforce of the people who either wrote this code or understand the business processes attached to them. And then, as a lot of our departments know, getting at that data, running reports on it, having it feed other systems, is just not as efficient as we'd like it to be. So from a challenge perspective, those are the drivers. If we could just snap our fingers and do it, we would. In fact, even throwing money at it isn't really the answer, right? It takes a coordination and people working together. We have other agencies that feed us through the mainframe, so we're kind of dependent upon them and others that are fed from them. The Department of Knowledge continues to walk out the door, so many of the people that set this up are no longer with the city or county, so we have to work backwards. And this technical knowledge and funding are always those issues that we're struggling. And so this just gives you a feel for some of the things we've done, and I won't go through these one by one. There's every assumption, but we have completed some work up on the top that is related to the mainframe. We've got some key active projects that we're already working on to move workload off. So this isn't like there's nothing happening, right? There's quite a few things happening, and some rather large, huge projects, including working with our property tax systems and things like that. We're kicking off an effort to try to make progress on that, as well as VJ and team working on, how do we get data out of the mainframe into a place where we can run reports on it, share it with other applications easily, or we're making progress on that. So again, we're taking a program approach to this. I'm not going to read these slides. It's what we're doing right now, which is educating departments on where we're at and what we're doing. Working with them, the ITCs and city county finance to say, how do we get this done? And then ultimately, sunshine is the best medicine, right? So we're going to talk about this every time we meet as an oversight committee and bring up where we're at and the progress we're making. I remember when we started the VoIP program, right? It was the numbers were reversed, right? It was 1,000 phones on VoIP and 5,000 not. And here we are reversed. Those numbers are reversed today. We hope to see a similar trend as we get more sophisticated. Questions on that we can answer?
I'm just curious, talking about this. So how long do you think, what's the time frame?
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
that depends on so many things. I mean, we will continue to try to pick off that low hanging fruit. The fact is, we've done a lot of that already, right? The OMS project, correction, that's a big one, right? So that'll make a big, stepwise function of move as we move there. But the biggest thing is dealing with the property system. And that requires all of those elected officials getting together and agreeing, here's where we're going and here's how we're going to do it. And then on the criminal justice side, we still have a lot of work to do with the state and all those different agencies. So that is a very political non-answer answer. I understand that. The good news is it won't be a secret, right? And one of the things we want to do next is talk about, okay, what is the actual workload, and start to segment that out for this group to say, okay, what would it take to start to tackle bits of this, so that we can start to put a timeline together. This is, we want to be 50% there by this, and we're just not there yet.
And it's all the personnel and aging works. That's going to force some of it, isn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes
Eventually.
but nothing like a good crisis.
Yeah.
Sometimes, right? And we've
At
seen
some
that.
point.
We've had key people that have left, and it's forced us to get creative, right? And say, okay, let's start to do something. Some of them just keep hanging around though. They try to retire, and then we bring them back in and say, hey, will you help us, please? And it's unfortunate addiction, right? And so we do need to your point. And that's not just the technical folks at DOTComm, that's the people that the departments that have been around 20, 30 years that know the processes. When they leave, again, it's too bad. It's also an opportunity to say, okay, someone new coming in might say, no, I don't want to do it this way anymore. Let's get it off the hand. So it will be a topic that we continue to massage and say, okay, here's where we are. Here's the reality in terms of how quickly we can continue to make progress. Any other questions on the Mainframe? Okay, the other program we're kicking off is just a data visualization modernization program. And one of the things we just wanted to define is what do we mean by visualization, business intelligence reporting. On the left-hand side is what most of us kind of understand as a managed report. DOTComm gathers up a bunch of data and shoots a report to a manager or someone on staff on a regular basis. Hey, what's the week, what's the month? That's kind of been the traditional approach. Where we want to head and where we are in many places, but frankly not in a lot of places, is giving the departments that ability to have that ad hoc reporting capability. Pull up their dashboard, have access in real time to the information. So that's the goal, is to get there. Now there's still a place for the ones on the left and they serve a purpose, but we want to get to that ad hoc self-service. The tool that we've invested in and had for a long time is a tool called Web Focus. One of the reasons we use it is because it plays nicely with the Mainframe. Okay, so that's why we've invested in it over the decades. We're doing, it does a whole bunch of different things for us today. Go to the next slide. We're creating 40 data portals for the city and county. We produce 250 of those managed reports on a regular basis. We have 100 people within the city and county who access Web Focus and use it on a regular basis. And it can pull data from anywhere, Mainframe, SQL, applications. But we are down level currently on version 7, and we're heading to version 9. And some of the features that will come with version 9 is that we will get a lot more of the technologically advanced capabilities that our departments are looking for. So that is scheduled to be completed in the first part of 2023. Budget year, so off in 24, 25. We're hoping to have that finished up here early 2023 and release those capabilities. The biggest load has been converting all the old reports to the new systems. That's the lion's share of BJ. And his team has been working on that. Then we'll go out and educate on, okay, what can we do for you? So now if you go to the slide, our goal is to get Web Focus, more people understanding it, advertising it, what can we do with it? How can we get a steering committee together of interested city and county participants who want to sit down and share best practices? Because a lot of this is you don't know what you don't know, right? And that's the feedback we're getting. It's like, well, I can't visualize it on my own. I need help. Well, let's have some of the people that are good at this talk to some of the people that need help. The other thing we want to make sure we drive home is that Web Focus isn't the only tool out there. We have other software tools, whether inside the application that you're already using or other applications that we can use. There's nothing hampering us from using the best technology for the job itself. And so in those discussions that Diane and Bobby and I are going to have with the departments, we're going to sit down and, would you like to kick off an effort to look at this? We can do some work to see what we can provide for you from questions on that data visualization modernization.
Oh, this is helpful, and Diane, I think when you do the county IT advisory group, you should take them through these two programs too. Yeah, just so that they can be kept up to date on it. Yes.
Good. Yes, and so the placeholder, this is gonna fill in like our VoIP projects and our mainframe projects that as we go out and we got the web focus project, and that's what listed here. But we wanna go out and understand demand for visualization, and as we do that, we hope to see a queue of projects start to build here. Sorry, Kelly, it's here 65 and up, but that's the goal. We wanna understand demand so that we can start to plan for it and put those projects in place to go out and meet people's needs for data visualization. Now we'll talk about this isn't new, but we thought, hey, if we're going to have a VoIP program, a mainframe program, and a data visualization program, let's call Oracle and what it is, right? Which is an Oracle modernization program too. So I'll turn it over to BJ to talk about data.
Yeah, on the Oracle front, as you all know, at the end of last year, we upgraded the Oracle instance to 12 to 10 to stay at the premium level support customers. Otherwise, we have to pay almost $10 a year for Oracle to stay at support. So we have to do that. And in the meantime, we're looking into upgrade to our cloud version. So we did a bunch of activities in preparation for the cloud. So we did the cloud readiness assessment a couple of years back, and then come back and do another one, because when we did that, we did mapping to an earlier version. So we have an activity schedule to map it to the current release they have out there, and what are the gaps that we missed. We will go back and make sure that we cover those and map those to our existing functionality. And then we also recently had 2 demos with the city and the county folks, especially with the HCM and financial side. We have 2 more scheduled. Those will cover the procurement side, the supply chain side, and the projects on the grant side, just to make sure those meet our requirements. And apart from that, we also have a couple of other activities scheduled, especially around there's a conversation going between city and county if they want to change the chart of accounts. So this is a good time to have that conversation and see discuss the pros and cons of that, and then also look at some of the implementation design patterns. So currently the way city and county share an instance, so there's a requirement that we give the city and the county more ability to control their own instance and manage their month-end processes. So those once we decide that, and then we'll come up with a plan by January, what the rollout potentially will look like in a phase-wise, what those licenses numbers look like, and how they're going to implement it. Right now, tentatively, we are looking to have that HCM conversations between now and January. If we get the blessing from the county, we're looking to move forward very quickly on the HCM side as a phase 1, while we keep the financial and supply chain current release. And once we finish the HCM, we come back, phase manner, come back and do other pillars as an implementation. Right now, these are just and things will change because we have to be very careful how we go about implementing it, because that could cost us or save $1 million. So all that is to be flushed out between now and January. That we will continue to update and keep reporting it the status every year where we're heading to that.
And the ultimate goal there is that, to get a business case and package out to a larger set of stakeholders. And this group's very important. We've got a lot of people that are interested in this. So that would be a package that would go out and say, hey, here's where we're heading. How's it going to be funded? What's the timeline? What's the resource requirements? That's the real deliverable in 2023 to go out.
Yeah, and I think what I would really like to do is in January, when we're at that stage, is to have a big meeting, a powwow, because I know Steve Curtis and I had talked about this. Danish talked to me about it, and along with certain members of the county board, is I think we're in general comfortable with moving to this next stage, one of the cloud with Oracle, but at the same time, people like Workday are out there making phone calls, and they have an interesting approach in that they target county board members and city council members and get their attention. And so I think at some point we have to have a meeting where we have all those parties there and present, this is why it makes sense to go to this next step with the cloud with Oracle. We think it's going to cost this much. We think it's going to take this long, and get those stakeholders in the room and get this presentation and get a consensus coming out. And then once we have that, I think then we really can start to move forward.
We couldn't be more violent, right? I mean, that's what we've been building to for all of the years. And you remember about this time last year, we had a meeting to kind of tee that up, right? Say, hey, there's a bunch of work to be done. We've got to get this release done to get on the modern, where we need to be. Then we'll take some time to build that case. You come say, here is our recommendation, and here's why this is the path we need to go down.
Right, and cost justified.
And here's where's the cost. Here's what the cost would be if we were to go down another path.
Right.
And here's what the disruption cost would be. So that is on us to create and deliver to that broader stakeholder group to build that consensus.
Yep. Okay, good.
That is the next step. Not a nickel will be spent, until that consensus is reached and everyone's headed in the same direction.
Very good.
There are some of the projects that we completed on the local side. We have the major one we talked to up with that we did. And the other one working on the Innova side, we have to get done. The water process of the city, and we have a couple of them in flight right now, especially interfacing with other stuff, in time clock and some of the Mainframe interface of payables from general assistance.
And so that's again is another trying to be consistent here, showing all the work that's happening in these areas. I think that's something we've learned. We need to make it more clear and broadcast. There's a lot of work going on in each one of these areas. And let people know about it. But ultimately, on the Oracle side, we're in agreement that is the deliverable as that larger presentation. Here's the road. Right. Great.
All right. Got a few security updates here for you. A project that we've been working on for a while and we're bringing back here for Q1 is a VPN multi-factor project. So we're really ready to implement that piece out there. All the Citrix and testing that we need to have done is complete. So we're working on that going forward. As kind of a heads up, the security team's working with a reseller for professional services to get some things fixed up in our logging environment. It's one of those areas that you don't really think about, but it's a large investment that DOTComm makes into security monitoring and logging. So definitely trying to get the most we can out of that product and helping us determine what the best licensing is going forward. We just talked about it between Oracle, Workday, and others. We do that the same thing on our team between security products on a regular basis. The team just got back, Cody and I did, from an Okta conference. It was a pretty good time. Definitely things are moving more towards cloud, towards zero trust, all these other buzzwords you hear. So there's definitely different approaches on that. And we've got lots of investments in that particular product as well, and continuing to get more out of that. So the big thing we've got the last couple months, last time we announced we were going to make a consolidated security policy. So you all should have had a copy of that and a packet that was sent out. Essentially, it's taking all 7 policies that we've had in the past that have all been oversight approved, many before some of you guys were members, right? And took all of those and put them in part of a cybersecurity framework. We chose NIST CSF 1.1. It's commonly used in government and aligns with other government grants, other types of items that are looked upon. So it aligns very well. And really, some of the areas that we're looking at is doing no changes to what we got for this particular round. As we have future oversight meetings here in 2023, we'll bring forward small changes such as multi-factor VPN to tie into that, as well as some other items. But what we really want to do is just reinforce the existing 7 policies we have, consolidate them, make them easier to review. It gives us a couple opportunities that we can reinforce the enforcement piece of it to show that this is the policy that we have to follow, and it is approved by the highest level for DOTComm's governance, you guys. And also it gives an opportunity then for third parties to look at it and say, all right, we've got this policy and we know everything that's out there. We know NIST. We can now say you're missing this piece, or you want to work on this other one, just like you do for any other type of auditor compliance. So there is definitely a need for this, and appreciate you guys, taking a look.
Any questions on that for Greg? Because we will vote on that as new business, but any technical questions or things that?
I brought the policy with me, just paper copy.
I was looking, yeah. I'll take a paper copy.
Again, just to reiterate, we were here 2 months ago. We made a commitment that we would consolidate the 7 policies that were already out there and approved, so that it's in one place. It's easy to find. Now, earmark how these policies now relate to this NIST framework, which now sets us up to add additional policies in the future. But just to be frank, it sets us up to say we already have these policies in place. And so we will work with departments to say, hey, we're seeing a non-compliance here. This has been ratified, reified by our oversight committee. And I just want to make sure that you understand that, and let's work on making sure that we get to compliance for city issues that remain. And so really, there's nothing in that packet that wasn't already on the books.
So there's nothing new.
No, there is a document that was shared with me that showed, where it was, where it is. Right. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 sentences that were just cleaned up a little bit here and there.
All the grammatical that we've noticed over time, but nothing substantial that has been changed a little bit more. When an auditor comes in, they ask a lot of times, what do you do for a change management program? What do you do for these other things? We put a little bit of text in there so that those answers are already done. You can hand them the policy and they don't have to come back. But as far as anything the city or county impacting, anything that's changed. Policy.
Thank you.
Finance and
But overall, that's the budget where we're at here. So like we're really good shape. So we forecast at the end of the year, some of the things from a supply chain standpoint still continue to linger from a network switch perspective and some of the other equipment. Also things that we'll see at the end of the year from a staffing perspective, being able to have your timely hires. I'm sure that's parts of the departments that we're seeing, where we carry a vacancy on are going to be like that. Those are the same things that are regular department comes. Overall financial, we're in good shape. The revenues from the state, OCIO, in good shape. Capacity receivables, nothing of concern there. There are some that are outstanding, but from a dollar amount, nothing that's material for us. From a cash flow, when this graph is taking, you can see that we projected to take a slip. Which we're down, but then we're back up again. So the next time we'll see that we'll be on that end. Upward trend line as far as presentation. Yeah, the program is slated to end in this calendar year. Some of those items that are out there, include the ones that are DOTComm funded. We've got plans in place for that remaining forecast split, but this will be the last time that we present TFP for. Sorry, beginning working in 3 years. So, at the end of an era, but if it is a large technology investment need comes up.
So, nothing too crazy going on as far as turnover goes. Thank goodness. You can see that we one in October, we continue to below the Bureau of Labor Statistics trend line for government and IT. There in that bottom right issues. By tenure, the next slide. This is a little bit more impactful data here. So you can see we had a pretty big jump in our recognition in our work done system in September and October, and that is attributable to we do biweekly check-ins with our employees. And quarterly, we change the questions of those and kind of try to ask different things to get, different insights and kind of understand different things about our employees. And we shifted that to talk a little bit about recognition and how you recognize, your peers. Have you been recognized? Things like that. And we obviously saw a big impact from those questions there. So it's nice to see that we impacted the recognition, but also to see the correlation between how those checking questions can really impact the organization as a whole. So make sure that we're looking at there.
Is there a motion and second to approve the consolidated IT security policy?
I'll make a motion.
Motion and a second?
Butler,
Yes.
Van Flo,
Yes.
Conley,
Yes.
Redmond,
Yes.
Loren,
Yes.
5-0.
Okay, next on the agenda is request approval to add Dr. Gucci Chen as a citizen member for the DOTComm Oversight Committee. I think we shared information previously.
Butler,
Yes.
Van Flo,
Yes.
Conley, yes. Redmond,
Yes.
Loren.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the last item we have,
Yeah.
Elijah and I sat down and talked to many of you about our schedule. And we looked at our bylaws. In fact, Elijah and I got real excited to sit down and rewrite the bylaws, and we looked at them and went, well, they say everything that we thought they should say, and there's nothing to change, right? And we were actually a little bit more aggressive than we thought we needed to be in some of our, the way we nominated folks and did our elections for officers. So long story short, we're going to move to quarterly meetings. The schedule's here, go to the next page. This kind of lays it out so that we get all of our key activities. The elimination of the TIP plan eliminated the need for a meeting, not having a nomination and both eliminated the need for a meeting. But the thing I want to drive home, and Eliza knows this, you all know this, we have a meeting anytime we want, right? Call a meeting, if there's something going on, call a meeting, right? We have to have enough time to get it in the public record and all those things, but at the same time, this gives us a structure. And if we find that we need to meet more often or pressing need, we'll work together to make that happen. But our bylaw states we just need to advertise this and make it clear what our schedule will be for the next year. So if anyone has the issue, reach out to Eliza.
Do we need a motion and a second on that to approve the schedule?
You just have to make.
All right. Yeah, if there's any public comment. Next meeting is January 18th, 2023. And then we'll end this part of the meeting. And there's another tour. 4408. Okay.
Thank you.